leaders need to
watch all of this online at cspan.org in our video library. The U.S. House gaveling back in for the consideration of 3 more bills. Votes coming up later this evening at 6:30. Live coverage here on C-SPAN.
A bill to authorize certain Department of Veterans Affairs major medical facility projects and leases to extend certain expiring provisions of law and to modify certain authorities of the Secretary of Veterans Affairs and for other purposes.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentleman from Ohio, Mr. Johnson, and the gentleman from Minnesota, Mr. Waltz, each will control 20 minutes. The Chair recognizes the gentleman from Ohio.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself as much time as I may consume.
Without objection, the Chair, the gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, H.R. 2646 as amended, the Veterans Health Care Facilities Capital Improvement Act, would encompass the Department of Veterans Affairs' request for major medical facility projects and leases for fiscal year 2012 and extend certain expiring authorities. The bill before us today tracks with the resources that were provided in the appropriations bill that passed the House with bipartisan support. The VA provides high-quality medical care and services to our honored veterans through an extensive and diverse portfolio of medical facilities. This national infrastructure generates a great deal of costly construction and maintenance needs, which the Department must address. Section 2 of the bill would authorize the appropriation of $87 million for seismic corrections and renovations at facilities in Los Angeles, California, and Seattle, Washington. Section 3 of the bill would authorize the appropriation of $850 million to construct and modify medical facilities in Palo Alto, California, St. Louis, Missouri, San Juan, Puerto Rico, Fayetteville, Arkansas, and Orlando, Florida. Section 4 would authorize the appropriation of $50 million for leasing 8 outpatient medical facilities in Columbus, Georgia, Salem, Oregon, Springfield, Missouri, Fort Wayne, Indiana, Mobile, Alabama, Rochester, New York, San Jose, California, and South Bend, Indiana. Section 6 of the bill would clarify what information the VA must provide to Congress when seeking authorization for a major medical project or facility project or lease. Under current law, the VA is required to submit to Congress a prospectus for all major medical facility projects and lease requests. The information should include details relating to construction, equipment, and other costs for the proposed project, as well as any and all alternatives considered and data on projected utilization and operating costs. However, the VA has not provided this information in sufficient detail to allow Congress to effectively evaluate proposed projects and alternatives. Without accurate and complete information, Congress cannot carry out its statutory mission of ensuring an equitable distribution of medical facilities to provide access to care for our veterans across the United States, or be assured we are good stewards of taxpayer dollars. To similarly improve oversight, Section 7 of the bill would require the VA to obtain congressional authorization when using bid savings to expand the purpose of a major medical facility project. Section 8 of the bill would name the VA telehealth clinic in Craig, Colorado, the Major William Edward Adams VA Clinic. This provision was adopted from H.R. 1658, introduced by my friend and colleague Scott Tipton from Colorado, and I thank him for bringing this proposal forward. Major William Edward Adams, a Medal of Honor recipient, was a true American hero, and this designation would appropriately memorialize his brave service. Section 9 of the bill would name the VA Medical Center in Big Springs, Texas, the George H. O'Brien, Jr. Department of Veterans Affairs Medical Center. I would also like to thank my friend and colleague from Texas, Randy Neugebauer, for his efforts to introduce H.R. 558, which became this provision. George H. O'Brien, Jr. is also a Medal of Honor recipient, and it is important that we recognize his honorable service. Additionally, the bill would extend for various periods expiring authorities for several programs, including those that provide services to homeless veterans. It is deeply concerning that veterans continue to be overrepresented in the homeless population, and helping homeless veterans and those at risk gain access to the support they need to reintegrate into stable community environments and lead productive lives is one of the highest priorities of the Veterans Affairs Committee. The extension of these programs would provide comprehensive supportive services to help homeless and at-risk veterans find permanent housing, overcome substance use or other issues, gain meaningful employment, and put them on the path to being productive, successful members of our society. This legislation represents a bipartisan effort, and I would like to express my thanks to Chairman Jeff Miller and Ranking Member Bob Filner, as well as Subcommittee on Health Chairwoman Anne Marie Burkle and Ranking Member Mike Michaud for their efforts to quickly move this important legislation through committee and to the House floor. Further, the manager's amendment reflects an agreement reached with the chairman and ranking member of the Senate Committee on Veterans Affairs, Senator Patty Murray and Senator Richard Burr. I extend my appreciation to them for their work on this bill. It is my expectation that following consideration in the House, the Senate will act to take up H.R. 2646 as amended, and the legislation will be presented to the President for signature prior to the end of the fiscal year. Mr. Speaker, I urge all of my colleagues to join me in supporting H.R. 2646 as amended, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves the balance of his time. Gentleman from Minnesota.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself as much time as I may consume. I'd like to thank the gentleman for his hard work on this bill, as well as the chairman and the ranking member. Also like to thank the gentleman for his service to this nation in uniform and now on the VA committee. Tireless advocate for our veterans, and I think this piece of legislation authorizing the construction and some important things that you've just heard the gentleman talk about is a model for how we can do business here in a bipartisan manner, agreeing on things, discussing them, moving out of subcommittees through the full committee and now here to the House floor. So thank you for that. Our most solemn obligation is to take care of the men and women who have served our nation and ensure that they have the access to the benefits and the quality health care that they've so rightly earned. We have an obligation to make sure the places that they receive care on are world-class and safe. H.R. 2646 as amended would authorize $937,370,000 for 7 major facilities. These projects include critical improvements to VA medical centers to protect them in the event of natural disasters and to protect our recovering veterans by addressing basic safety needs such as adding fire extinguishers and abating existing asbestos. The projects also provide for state-of-the-art facilities and training centers to improve the care veterans receive and to make sure the veterans feel comfortable and welcome at all our facilities. Additionally, the bill would authorize funds for 8 new major medical facility leases that will assist the VA in bringing health care closer to veterans and improve the quality of current services, especially in rural America. It contains several extensions of authority for homeless programs and supportive services for very low-income veteran families. We owe it to our veterans to ensure they have access to secure, safe, clean housing that offers a supportive environment. And finally, this bill extends programs that are critical for our veterans who suffer from mental health issues. Nearly 30% of patients at the VA sees during any given year have a mental health diagnosis. We've taken strides to address this ever-growing issue, but we still have a long way to go. With the growing number of veterans returning from Iraq and Afghanistan and the increasing number of veterans suffering from mental health issues, we must work together to tackle this challenge, and this legislation helps by extending those programs. I would certainly encourage my colleagues to do what's right by our veterans, to support this good piece of legislation, H.R. 2646, as amended, and I reserve the balance of my time, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman reserves the balance of his time. The gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, at this time I'd like to yield 3 minutes to my friend and colleague from the great state of Texas, Representative Randy Nagelbauer.
The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Thank you, and thank the gentleman. Earlier this year, I introduced H.R. 558. This legislation would rename the Veterans Affairs Medical Center located in Big Spring, Texas, after the Medal of Honor recipient George H. O'Brien, Jr. I'd like to thank Chairman Miller and Congressman Flores for working to include this legislation as a part of our bill before us today. Born in Fort Worth, Texas in 1926, Mr. O'Brien enlisted in the Marine Corps while attending Texas Tech University. Shortly after graduation, he deployed to Korea. On October 27, 1952, the Americans mounted a counterattack during the Battle of the Hook, a position of key strategic significance.
When the battle began, 2nd Lieutenant O'Brien leaped from the trench and bravely led his platoon into a deadly small arms artillery and mortar fire against a numerically superior force. Mr. O'Brien official citation tells his story best. Although shot through the arm and thrown to the ground by hostile automatic weapons fire as he neared the well-entrenched enemy position, he regained his feet, waved his men onward, and continued to spearhead the assault, pausing only long enough to come to the aid of a wounded Marine. Encountering the enemy at close range, 2nd Lieutenant O'Brien proceeded to hurl hand grenades into the bunkers and, utilizing his carbine to best advantage in the savage hand-to-hand combat, succeeded in killing at least 3 of the enemy. Impressively, despite being wounded, 2nd Lieutenant O'Brien refused to be evacuated for medical treatment for nearly 4 hours and continued to lead his men in battle. 1 year to the day after his actions, Mr. O'Brien was awarded the Medal of Honor by President Eisenhower for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty as a rifle platoon commander in action against enemy aggressor forces. Upon his discharge from the United States Marines, O'Brien settled in Big Spring, Texas to raise a family and begin a career in petroleum geology, and often participated in volunteer programs at the Big Spring VA. In 2003 interview with American Veteran magazine, Mr. O'Brien stated, "This Medal of Honor is not mine. I hold it in trust for so many young people who didn't become grandfathers." George Herman O'Brien passed away on March 11, 2005. He was 78 years old. I urge my colleagues to support the underlying bill, and I'm proud to honor this great American veteran. With that, I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. It's time.
I thank the gentleman for yielding back, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves the balance of his time. The gentleman from Minnesota.
Mr. Speaker, we have no further members to speak. Does the gentleman have anyone further to speak?
Gentleman from Ohio.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks on the manager's amendment to H.R. 2646 as amended. I once again encourage all members to support H.R. 2646 as amended, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Without objection, the gentleman yields back the balance of his time. The gentleman from Minnesota.
Mr. Speaker, I too urge the support of this important piece of legislation. Again, thank the member, the gentleman, and the staff on both sides for putting together an important piece of legislation for Americans, veterans, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back the balance of his time. The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass H.R. 2646 as amended? Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the Chair, 2/3 being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended, the bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
Mr. Speaker, I request the yeas and nays recorded vote.
The yeas and nays are requested. All those in favor of taking this vote by the yeas and nays will rise and remain standing until counted. A sufficient number having arisen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, further proceedings on this question will be postponed. Pursuant to Clause 12A of Rule 1, the Chair declares the House in recess for a period less than 15 minutes.
The House has gavelled back. The House has gavelled back out. They will return at 6:30 Eastern for votes on some of the bills that they've considered this afternoon. They're out for just a short recess. Votes later this evening at 6:30 Eastern. Later this week in the House, in fact tomorrow, the House will consider federal spending for fiscal year 2012. Congress has authorized spending through the end of this month, and members are considering temporary spending that will last through November the 18th. While we wait for the House to come back in, part of this morning's Washington Journal. The House gavels out for a short recess.
Science Monitor just returned from Afghanistan, was there for about 3 weeks. You wrote a series looking at battling the Afghan insurgency called The Battle for Afghanistan's Gambir Jungle. I just want to begin with, what was Operation Hammer Down?
Well, this was an operation. They wanted to clear out a training center, kind of a training camp in this area, the Gambir Jungle. And it's kind of this area of pine forest, very, very mountainous, a lot of rocks and really tough terrain for the soldiers. And so that was the mission, to clear out this training camp that al-Qaeda forces they suspected were using, as well as local insurgents.
And why did it matter? I mean, why did they want to clear it out? You talk a little bit about what it looked like, but so why were these folks there? Why did it matter?
Yeah, well, I mean, they were concerned that this training camp was sort of a destination camp for fighters in the area, that there were some fighters who were coming kind of far and wide to use this camp, being trained by possibly al-Qaeda forces, but then also perhaps training some al-Qaeda forces, doing training of their own because they're so familiar with the terrain. So, and this is an area, not too far from the Afghan-Pakistan border, and so they thought, well, you know, this is something that needs clearing out.
And you write in one of your pieces that this has been cleared out, this training camp has been cleared out every year since 2006.
Well, and that's kind of the crux of the story, and that's what the soldiers were grappling with, because this was an incredibly tough fight. I think you often get the impression that, well, whenever U.S. forces go up against Taliban forces or other insurgent groups, they'll win pretty handily. And generally that's the case, but I think, what we don't always realize is that these are some really, really tough battles as well. It's hard terrain. These are groups that they're fighting against that know the terrain really well. And as you said, this was a camp that had been cleared out every year since '06. And that was something that the soldiers were well aware of themselves.
So they come up with Operation Hammer Down. What do they do?
So they're sent to go into this area. One of the platoons from this brigade is going to go in and clear this camp out. The problem is when they reach just the kind of the threshold, the bare borderline of this camp area, they are ambushed, and it is an ambush and a firefight that would last the better part of a week. And what they encountered was some incredibly, pretty, as they described it, very sophisticated fighting by Taliban forces. They were maneuvered upon. They were so close at some points that they could really hear these guys talking, and at one point there were some soldiers who were marching through. Now generally the U.S. soldiers like to fight. They'll often have a lot of superiority at night, because these insurgents don't have night vision goggles. They don't have those kind of capabilities. And so they feel pretty safe at night as well, because the Taliban doesn't like to fight at night for just that reason. So they were marching through, and then they got radio communication that some insurgents were talking to each other in these radio intercepts that military intelligence got, that they had seen the green glow of their night vision goggles. Now the soldiers.
Hey, we're going to take you live now back to the House floor here on C-SPAN.
Just have to be mere feet away.
Pass H.R. 2005, Combating Autism Reauthorization Act of 2011.
Clerk will report the title of the bill.
H.R. 2005, a bill to reauthorize the Combating of Autism Act of 2006.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Pitts, and the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Doyle, each will control 20 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Pitts.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, H.R. 2005, the Combating Autism Reauthorization of 2011, would enable the Department of Health and Human Services to continue its important work to understand, treat, and cure autism spectrum disorders. In 2000, Congress passed the Children's Health Act that included funding for research and surveillance on autism. Eventually, in 2006, Congress passed the Combating Autism Act that is now being reauthorized. The Combating Autism Act authorizes HHS to research on autism spectrum disorders and other developmental disabilities at NIH, convene an interagency autism coordinating council, conduct surveillance to identify the extent of the disorder, and promote early screening and train medical personnel to identify children at risk. Since the program was first passed in 2006, research has led to better diagnosis, more comprehensive surveillance, and programs that offer support and respite for families. I urge my colleagues to support this legislation, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves the balance of his time. The gentleman from Pennsylvania.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask for such time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to see that the House of Representatives is considering legislation to reauthorize the Combating Autism Act. And it's not a moment too soon with the Combating Autism Act set to expire at the end of this month. I want to take this opportunity to emphasize the importance of this act, and I also want to thank my counterpart, my colleague, and my good friend Chris Smith on the other side of the aisle for his leadership on this issue. 5 years ago, the House of Representatives passed bipartisan legislation by a voice vote that provided the support and direction for the country's first autism-specific research. That bill, the Combating Autism Act, included life-changing provisions relating to the diagnosis and treatment of persons with autism spectrum disorders and expanded biomedical research on autism, including an essential focus on possible environmental causes. With this funding, the Centers for Disease Control have been able to put together detailed surveillance of autism so that we have better data to use. Autism screening at well-baby checkups have become mainstream, and parents are better educated about the warning signs, along with the treatment of options. Additionally, standards of care for those with an autism spectrum disorder have been developed for both physical and behavioral health where there had been none. Early diagnosis and intervention for children with autism is utterly life-changing. It can mean the difference between independence in the community and living in a communal home. It can mean the difference between speaking or being mute. And for many parents, it means peace of mind and a support network that would have been impossible without this initial investment in research on autism spectrum disorders. I introduced this legislation with my good friend Chris Smith as a part of a three-bill package. Those pieces of legislation would ensure that there are also services available to adults with autism, which I think is critical. It's my hope that in the future, this body will have a conversation about the needs of adults living with autism, and that we will consider how best to provide for them so that everyone has a long, fulfilling, and productive life. But for now, it is of grave importance that the House passes this reauthorization with the same overwhelming support as 5 years ago, and that we can get this bill to the President's desk by the end of this month. I urge my colleagues to support this bill, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves the balance of his time. The gentleman from Pennsylvania.
Mr. Speaker, I yield the gentleman from Alabama, Mr. Baucus, 3 minutes.
The gentleman from Alabama is recognized.
I thank the gentleman from Pennsylvania, and in fact, both gentlemen from Pennsylvania. Mr. Dole, I commend you, and I commend my colleague Chris Smith for your excellent work over the years in combating autism, and for bringing this bill to reauthorize the Combating Autism Act. As Mr. Dole said, there's an increasing prevalence of autism, and it is a diagnosis and a condition that these children and their families deal with for their entire life. It's a challenge for those families, a tremendous challenge, one that can't be overstated. But it's also a challenge for society as well, because the long-term cost involved in providing care for individuals with development disorders can be great. But it can be lessened. There is hope. There is treatment. The blessing of recent years, in fact, has been that new research and early intervention programs are making an enormous difference in bettering the lives of young boys and girls with autism spectrum disorders. And with early autism, many can lead much better, if not almost normal lives, which is a blessing for all of us. And it's a joy to see. It's a joy to see these children respond to early intervention and begin to develop emotionally. As a member of the Congressional Autism Caucus, I've personally seen exciting innovations at facilities using a comprehensive approach to care. Mitchell's Place in Birmingham is helping young children and adolescents in Alabama improve both their academic performance and social behavior by combining the latest in research and services with a structured and caring environment. That center was started by a couple whose young boy had autism, and it is a blessing for our community. You only need to visit that center and see the beautiful children and the new hope that they have. Not only they, but their proud parents and their grandparents, as they realize that every day, every week, every month, they're improving and becoming more a part of society and more a functioning individual as far as their interaction with others. It's literally a God sent to these families. It's an oasis. It's a spring in the desert. A coordinated and comprehensive approach to the treatment of autism spectrum disorders is the key to this encouraging process. My home state of Alabama, and I'm also proud to say, has recognized the importance of close cooperation when it formed the Alabama Interagency Autism Coordinating Council in 2008. To a certain extent, it looked to Pennsylvania and the work that had been done there. Children and parents across my state are being helped by the Council's planning and awareness efforts. Finally, Mr. Speaker, the Combating Autism Act has been crucial to promoting the kind of coordinated approach on a national level. The renewal of this legislation will build on the successes that have already been achieved in a responsible and effective way. I close by saying it's my hope that this legislation will receive overwhelming bipartisan support because it is doing good works while making life-changing investments in the health and well-being of very special children. Thank you. And very precious children, too. And thank you, Mr. Dole.
The gentleman from Pennsylvania is recognized.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the gentleman from Alabama, a valuable member of the Autism Caucus, for his words of support. I see my good friend Chris Smith has joined us on the floor. And Chris, you weren't here. I thank you for your leadership, and it's good to see you. Mr. Speaker, at this time, I would like to yield 3 minutes to my friend and colleague, the gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Butterfield.
The gentleman from North Carolina is recognized.
Let me first thank Congressman Dole for yielding time, and certainly thank him for his leadership on this very important issue. Not only has he led on this issue, but he has led on the Energy and Commerce Committee for many years, and I just want to thank him publicly for his friendship and that leadership. Also, let me thank Chris Smith, Congressman Chris Smith, for his bipartisan spirit and his willingness to work on this very important issue. These two men working together have really and truly made a difference. And so I join the chairman of the subcommittee, Mr. Pitts, and all of the others for thanking them for a job well done. Mr. Speaker, later today, the House is going to take up this legislation, the Combating Autism Reauthorization Act of 2011. And make no mistake about it, I intend to vote for this very important bill. However, I've come to the floor today to make a very simple but important point that I had intended to raise had this bill been heard in regular order and had it been considered by our committee. Although autism occurs in every racial and ethnic and socioeconomic group, studies show clearly that on average, a diagnosis of autism or autism spectrum disorder is actually delayed. It's delayed by almost 2 years for African American and Hispanic children as compared to their Caucasian counterparts. Many of my colleagues may not know this, but it is a clear fact. Minority children are much more likely to be misdiagnosed with conduct-related or adjustment disorders. Since research shows that early detection yields better, more effective results, it is imperative, Mr. Speaker, that we expand efforts to address disparities in awareness, diagnosis, treatment, and services. In carrying out the programs of the Reauthorization Act, I simply ask the Secretary of Health and Human Services to make every conceivable effort to address the well-documented needs of minority children who are diagnosed with this disease that we refer to as autism. I want to thank you for listening. Thank you for your advocacy. I urge my colleagues to support passage of H.R. 2005. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Pennsylvania.
Mr. Speaker, at this time I would like to yield such time as he may consume to the gentleman from New Jersey, Mr. Smith, and thank him for his leadership on this issue.
The gentleman from New Jersey is recognized.
Thank you very much. I thank my good friend, the Chair, Mr. Pitts, for yielding and for his leadership on all issues related to health, but in particular on autism. I do want to thank Speaker Boehner and Majority Leader Cantor for bringing the bill to the floor. Without them, it wouldn't be on the floor today. And Energy and Commerce Committee Chairman Fred Upton, and of course, again, Chairman Pitts. And I want to thank my good friend, Mr. Doyle. We have worked on this for well over a decade. We formed the Autism Caucus. It has over 100 members. It is totally bipartisan, and it has been a pleasure to work with him, and I thank him for his leadership as well. Mr. Speaker, I do rise today in support of this bill, H.R. 2005, the Combating Autism Reauthorization Act of 2011, I should say. This legislation is critically important to continue without interruption the progress that has been achieved to date in understanding autism and in developing interventions that will have the greatest impact in helping individuals affected by autism or other developmental disabilities. When I first got elected in Congress in 1980, Mr. Speaker, the autism community accepted that autism prevalence rates in the United States were something on the order of 3 in 10,000. Today it's estimated to be 1 in 110. And in some places like New Jersey, the data suggests 1 in 94, for a total of about 1.5 million individuals in the U.S. who are suffering from autism. On May 31st of this year, I chaired a hearing as chairman of the Global Health, Global Human Rights Africa Subcommittee, a hearing entitled Global Autism, a Developmental Disability Pandemic. My committee received testimony that some 67 million people worldwide suffer from ASD in the world, about tens of millions in Africa, according to the World Health Organization. It is an epidemic. And this bill, this legislation, the Combating Autism Act, is a very responsible and I would suggest modest effort to combat this pandemic that's occurring. In 1998, Mr. Speaker, for the record, the wonderful parents of 2 autistic children in my district, Bobby and Billy Gallagher, asked me to look into what appeared at the time to be an autism prevalence spike in Brick Township, New Jersey. I invited CDC and the Agency for Toxic Substance and Disease Registry, or the ATSDR, and others to investigate. And not only did their probe show what appeared to be elevated numbers of children with the disorder in Brick Township, but the data strongly suggested a much wider problem than anticipated in other parts of my state, because they were doing comparisons, and the data calls produced information that said, uh-oh, we have a problem not just in Brick, but elsewhere. In direct response to that, in 1999, I introduced the Autism Statistics, Surveillance, Research, and Epidemiology, or ASSURE Act, to establish centers of excellence and create a federal advisory committee, which became Title I of the Children's Act of 2000. I always want to thank Chairman Bilirakis for including it in his bill, and it made all the difference in the world. 5 years later, the initiative was reauthorized and expanded in the Combating Autism Act, the law we respectfully ask members to renew today. According to the NIH, autism spectrum disorder, and just for the record again, autism is defined as impaired verbal or nonverbal communication skills and social interactions and restricted, repetitive, and stereotyped patterns of behavior, ranging in impact from mild to significantly disabling. It ought to be noted that the Combating Autism Act of 2011 will continue the success of the CAA of 2006 by authorizing funding for programs at NIH, CDC, HRSA for 3 additional years. I would point out, and this is important, autism spectrum disorder is very expensive. And again, efforts made to mitigate its prevalence and to treat with early intervention those who show or manifest signs of it, because it's not only humane, and that should be our driving force, but it is also very cost-effective. It's estimated that ASD costs per year is between $35 and $90 billion with a B. So the costs are very, very large. H.R. 2005, as my colleagues I know have said, would also reauthorize the Interagency Autism Coordinating Committee, or the IACC, a panel of government and public members tasked with coordinating all ASD-related activities within HHS, as well as developing and annually updating a strategic plan for ASD research. In order to enhance the quality, efficacy, and applicability of research grants, in other words, let's spend the money wisely, and to avoid waste and duplication, the IACC has crafted 3 strategic research plans, one in 2009, one in 2010, and another for this year. For example, in 2009, the strategic plan included 40 research objectives, including development of new diagnostic tools, identification of genetic and environmental risk factors, and assessments of services for people with ASD in all ages in a community setting. It should be noted that the aging out issue is becoming increasingly a concern. What does a parent whose son or daughter or sons or daughters turn 21 and the full array of those services are no longer available? What do? Recently, I had Chuck Colson's daughter, who wrote a book called Dancing with Max, a wonderful story of love between a mother and her son. Her son now is aging out, and she is frightened by the prospect what happens as she gets elderly and those services are not there. We need to be focusing on that. The 2010 strategic plan had 32 new objectives, including health disparities in early diagnosis and treatment of co-concurring conditions such as epilepsy, sleep, and gastrointestinal disorders. The 2011 strategic plan added another 16 objectives, including studies on the use of accessibility of alternative and augmentative communication tools for nonverbal individuals. I just want to say to my colleagues, and I have much more that I will put into the record about how important it is, but all these different agencies of government are surging to try to combat autism. We need to reauthorize this legislation. You know, the CDC's got its Learn the Science, Act Early. My friend Mr. Butterworth earlier mentioned the fact that minority communities have been left out, or diagnoses are often not done in a timely way. That is absolutely true, and more needs to be done. The programs are in place. The policies are in place. We need to continue what is truly a very, very effective use of the taxpayer dollars to help these autistic children. There's also the problem, as the information has learned, early detection is key to mitigating the impact of autism. But still, even with 10 years' experience educating doctors and parents and educators, there is still about a 2-year lag when there's a detection of something is wrong with my son or daughter before that diagnosis is actually made. And the earlier we start the intervention strategies, the greater that child will have a quality of life and a life where they can achieve their goals and their dreams. But if we don't catch it early and begin taking action, very often the life of that child is more seriously impaired. This legislation, like I said, is a modest step, but a very crucial step. And I want to thank all the organizations for the work that they've done. They've been tremendous. The NGOs that are in the community, Autism Speaks, all of the groups for the work that they've done in educating members. And again, thank you again, Chairman Pitts, for bringing this bill to the floor, and to Eric Cantor for scheduling it and for ensuring that we can act on this in a timely way. And again, my good friend on the other side of the aisle, Mr. Doyle, for his leadership.
The gentleman from Pennsylvania.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank my friend Chris Smith for his important words. I hope all members were listening carefully because the clock is running. Mr. Speaker, we anticipate maybe some people coming to the floor to speak, so at this time I will reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Pennsylvania.
Speaker, I yield the gentleman from Mississippi 1 minute. Mr. Harper.
The gentleman from Mississippi is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today in support of Combating Autism Reauthorization Act of 2011, and I want to thank my colleagues, particularly Congressman Smith, Congressman Doyle, and Chairman Pitts for their great work on bringing this to the forefront today. Experts estimate that 1 in every 110 children is diagnosed with autism. As a whole, developmental disabilities affect an increasing number of young people, and specifically students. In an effort to help provide students with exciting education and enrichment opportunities, I was honored to establish the Congressional Internship Program for individuals with intellectual disabilities in 2010. Last week, 22 congressional offices, Republican and Democratic, welcomed 11 developmentally disabled students to their staffs to serve as interns for this fall. Collecting data for autism spectrum disorders and other developmental disabilities is vital to ensuring that every young person with a significant disability has the opportunity, the encouragement, and the support to become gainfully employed in an integrated setting, pursue a post-secondary education, and contribute to and engage in meaningful ways in typical community settings once they leave high school. This gives these individuals with autism hope. I urge my colleagues to support this, and I thank you and yield the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Doyle.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I yield myself the balance of our time.
Mr.
Speaker, I first learned about autism when I was a young staffer in the Pennsylvania State Senate. A gentleman by the name of Dan Turiski came into our office one day. His son Eddie had autism, and he had asked us to see what we could do at the state level to give him and his family some help. Eddie was a young man at that time. He's an adult now. He's in his mid-40s. A lot of people's idea of autism, I think, was if they saw the movie Rain Man. That was about the only thing they knew about autism. It was something that people didn't understand, something that was frequently misdiagnosed. When Chris and I decided to form this caucus over 10 years ago, one of the goals that we had was to bring education and awareness not only to our colleagues, many of whom were not familiar with the disorder, but also to the public, and also to bring some attention to the researchers at NIH, too, that there was something much bigger to this than people realized. It's borne fruit over the years. We've seen research dollars greatly increased at NIH. And I want to also echo what my friend Chris said, the parents groups. This is really the strength of the autism community. It's not the Autism Caucus. It's not Chris Smith or Mike Doyle. It's really the parents of these children that form the many different groups you see out there. Their grassroots effort really has grown this movement and brought attention to it and given it strength and brought us to where we are today. We have a clock ticking. This act expires the end of September. I know there's some concern over in the Senate with some of our colleagues about reauthorizing disease-specific bills. I hope that all of us will speak to our colleagues over in the Senate. I certainly intend to speak to mine and stress the importance of continuing the great progress that's been made over this past 5 years. This is not a time for us to stop what we're doing and to pull support for this very, very important act. So I hope that we will pass this swiftly in the House of Representatives. I hope all of us will use whatever influence we may have with our colleagues in the other body to see that they also get this reauthorized by the end of the month so that the President can sign it for all of the families out in America who are dealing with this disorder. With that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Pennsylvania.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and insert extraneous materials in the record.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, I have no other speakers. I urge members to support H.R. 2005, and I commend again Chris Smith and Mike Doyle for their leadership on this issue, and with that I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back the balance of his time. The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass H.R. 2005? Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the Chair, 2/3 being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended, the bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. For what purpose does the gentleman from Pennsylvania seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I move to suspend the rules and pass H.R. 1852, the Children's Hospital GME Support Reauthorization Act of 2011.
The clerk will report the title of the bill.
Union Calendar Number 132, H.R. 1852, a bill to amend the Public Health Service Act to reauthorize support for graduate medical education programs in children's hospitals.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Pitts, and the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Doyle, each will control 20 minutes. The Chair recognizes the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Pitts.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, H.R. 1852, the Children's Hospital Graduate Medical Education Reauthorization Act of 2011, would enable the Department of Health and Human Services to continue to provide funding to freestanding children's hospitals to support the training of pediatricians and other residents. This funding is critical to ensuring the adequacy of the pediatric workforce in the United States. The program was first enacted by Congress in 1999 with wide bipartisan support and has been reauthorized twice. Since the enactment of the bill, the number of pediatricians trained has increased by 35%. The week we marked up this bill, I met 10-year-old Anna Lipsman. Anna is a bright, outgoing young girl who is fighting leukemia. Diagnosed just a few months ago, Anna spent 2 weeks undergoing treatment at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. She is successfully fighting her disease, but will still need additional treatments over the next 2.5 years. Anna is a strong personal reminder of why I introduced this bill. With the reauthorization of H.R. 1852, we hope to send a clear message to the Obama administration and the Department of Health and Human Services that this bill is important to ensuring that children receive adequate health care. I would like to thank Mr. Pallone and all the 114 co-sponsors that worked on this legislation. And I urge my colleagues to support this legislation, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves his time. The gentleman from Pennsylvania.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself as much time as I shall consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of the Children's Hospital Graduate Medical Education Support Reauthorization Act, offered by my good friends Mr. Pitts and Mr. Pallone. I know Mr. Pallone is on his way to the floor and will be speaking shortly. This critical legislation will reauthorize the Children's Hospital Graduate Medical Education Program through 2016 to ensure that our children have access to the care they need and deserve, and I urge my colleagues to pass this bill with unanimous support. The original bipartisan program was enacted over a decade ago to provide children's hospitals across the country with the federal support to implement and carry out necessary residency training programs. Last year alone, over 50 children's hospitals received funding to carry out these training programs. Today, Over 40% of pediatricians and pediatric specialists are trained through the Children's Hospital Graduate Medical Education Program. This program is vital to maintaining the pediatric workforce and ensuring children's access to the highest levels of pediatric care provided in this country. The Children's Hospital GME program is a critical investment in our children's health, and I am proud today that we will vote to reauthorize this hugely successful program. With that, Mr. Speaker, I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves the balance of his time. The gentleman from Pennsylvania is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield such time as he may consume to the gentleman from New Jersey, Mr. Lance, member of the subcommittee.
The gentleman from New Jersey is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise in strong support of H.R. 1852, legislation to reauthorize the Children's Hospital's Graduate Medical Education Program. Today's legislation will assist pediatric training programs across the country by maintaining and strengthening existing hospital graduate medical education programs for children. Independent children's hospitals have an indispensable role in the children's health workforce, training 40% of all pediatric residents and 43% of pediatric specialty fellows, and providing pediatric training for many other residents. Nowhere is this more evident than Children's Specialized Hospital in Mountainside, New Jersey, in the district I have the honor of serving. Under the strong leadership of my friend, Amy Mansue, the staff does an excellent job training and caring for children and making sure that highly qualified, effective medical personnel exist. I thank Health Committee Sub-Chairman Pitts for his tremendous work in this effort, as well as Ranking Member Pallone, and I thank them for working in a bipartisan capacity to bring this legislation to the floor. I'm honored to serve on Chairman Pitts' subcommittee, and I'm pleased that the full Energy and Commerce Committee has agreed with what we have tried to accomplish in the subcommittee. I urge all of my colleagues here in the House of Representatives to support H.R. 1852. It is essential that this program be reauthorized. I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Pennsylvania.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, it's my understanding Mr. Pallone is coming to the floor, one of the sponsors of the bill, so at this time I'll reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves his time. Gentleman from Pennsylvania.
Mr. Speaker, we do not have any more speakers. I'll continue to reserve. Ready to close?
Yeah. Mr. Speaker, it appears Mr. Pallone's not here yet. His flight was late getting in, so we have no further speakers either. So at this point, we will yield the rest of our time.
The gentleman yields the balance of his time.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and insert extraneous materials into the record.
Without objection.
And in conclusion, I would like to thank the ranking member of the subcommittee, Mr. Pallone, for his leadership on this issue. It has been a bipartisan effort in the Health Subcommittee and Energy and Commerce Committee, and I urge all members to support the Children's Hospital Graduate Medical Education Reauthorization Act and yield back the balance of my time.
Back the balance of his time. The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass H.R. 1852? Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the Chair, 2/3 being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended, the bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Pursuant to Clause 12A of Rule 1, the Chair declares the House in recess until approximately 6:30 p.m. today.
The House gavels out for a short recess. They'll come back at 6:30 Eastern for